Hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar on spinning up your video reduction with AMP Replay. So just a quick introduction about me. So I work for AMP and do mainly support and training. I've been doing it from 2022. And I'm formerly an imagery analyst. I worked for a number of police forces in the UK, namely Bedfordshire Police, Essex Police. They kind of work in counties in the United Kingdom, and each county has got its own police force. And I also worked privately. I still do quite a bit of forensic imagery analysis and processing, like enhancement, and also authentication for police works, police forces, and defense solicitors on commission. And occasionally I do redactions, which is actually the topic of today's webinar. So we're going to see how we can make what is quite a tedious bit of work, to be quite frank with you, especially when cameras move a lot. There's a lot of people that we need to hide or protect their identity on video. Of course, it's a legal requirement in a lot of situations. So, but it can be quite tedious. It's quite fiddly, and we're going to look at today how we can simplify it and make the process a little bit easier, and while complying with regulations as well. Okay, so I've got Bachelor of Technology in Multimedia Systems Engineering, and I'm also a LEVAS certified forensic video analyst. Random fun fact, I used to work in television back in the days. Yeah, doing fashion shows and music documentaries and things like that. And you may ask yourself, well, how did you end up in this industry, forensic video? Well, I actually like it quite a lot since I've been doing it, which is now for about 15 years, really. All right, so we're going to look at some of the most common issues that we can encounter in our video investigations. And we're also going to look why we have to redact video and audio and, comply with regulations that work entails. So one of the biggest problems that we face, especially when doing reductions, is that there is no skill set or experience sometimes with dealing with video forensically. So there's a lot of situations where, for example, in the United Kingdom, where I'm based, there might be departments like, administration staff working for the criminal justice system, or personnel working for the Freedom of Information Act units or something like that. They are suddenly got video on their desk and they are required to redact faces, hide the identity of people, remove bits of sound that might reveal witnesses, details, telephone numbers, addresses, and things like that. And of course, they may not know what they're doing. That's not their primary job. So that's what we at AMPS can help with, developing the products that can be operated by personnel that is not necessarily experts in video, but they are required to produce video evidence and do so forensically, so properly, if you like. One of the other issues that kind of like give a lot of people headaches is that the video format a lot of the times is not supported. This is most happens the most with CCTV footage, so digital CCTV, because a lot of manufacturers choose the way they will actually deal with that video, and sometimes you just can't play it. Okay, you need proprietary software produced by the manufacturer, and it gives a lot of people a lot of headaches. Luckily, the material that most of the times we have to redact, for example, body-worn videos, they are usually in an open format, but you may come across like CCTV that it may be difficult to play, and having to redact information from those as well, hide faces or things like that. And we can deal with that as well. And other things that we do at AMP is understand a lot of proprietary formats and play them, make them playable just as easy as dragging, dropping files into the program that we'll see in a minute. The other kind of thing that could be problematic is the watching of very long CCTV clips in order to find evidence of crime. This is another thing that is a plague for a lot of investigators. having to sit down in a dark room and watching hours and hours of CCTV, just hoping that they will find some evidence. And actually, a lot of the times, video needs to be watched, especially for the most serious crimes, but nothing of relevance is found. But still needs to happen. So there's still a lot of hours invested in that process, even if there is nothing good that come out of it. But it's kind of like a process that needs to happen in order to exclude anything, if you like, from an investigation. Right. The other thing is unable to redact sensitive information or to quickly annotate video. And again, this is kind of like a work that in the past used to be done by video editors or people who work with images and videos as a full-time job, if you like. But now there's a need for police officers and investigators, any sort of police staff that needs to, I don't know, maybe publish an image on the website for an appeal or something like that. Okay, so needs to be done and needs to be done quickly. Okay. Other thing is that the incorrect techniques or insufficient software to correctly capture individual frames or clips. We refer to this as acquisition. It's how you actually load the video and how you actually export the video after you made some annotations or redactions or enhancements, whatever you have done it. Actually choosing the right format on how you export something after you worked on is also very important because, of course, you want to retain quality. You want to make sure, and it's not just the visual quality as well, it's also reliability, for example, of timing information, frame rate information, timestamps, et cetera, that we need to preserve. And then there is another issue of no experience of producing forensic reports of auditing logs. All those things that you see in here are problems that you might think, oh, I haven't actually thought about that. But they happen in real time while you actually may find yourself doing something. So, oh, I haven't thought about that. And these are all the things that we have thought about in advance and that we can help with, even in a product like Replay that we're going to see up today. And of course, there are many videos, little time available. We need to make the process not just easy, but quick as well. That's very important in policing, time efficiency. All right, let's deal with something specific, artificial intelligence in policing. Now, as you probably know, there's a lot of sort of development with artificial intelligence, which is basically a computer that has been trained to, to find data or to create data even, or to assess data, analyze data, etc., etc. So he's actually had a process of training. And there's a lot of AI tools that are used at the moment in policing, for example, to find, sort of encrypted chats in text messages. For example, drug traffickers use a code, right, to communicate to each other. Well, if you have trained a computer to understand this jargon, then that's probably likely that it's going to find you a lot of information in there, which otherwise will take you a long, long time to do. But what you may not know, or probably some of you may know, is that there are now regulations set in place for the use of AI in policing. And you can see here a snapshot. This is a document that is being released by the National Police College of the College of Policing, sorry, which is an organization in the UK that's kind of like provides methodologies and recommendations on how to use certain tools in-house or outside. And you can see some of the principles that have been laid out for the use of AI tools, AI software in policing. So it's got to be lawful, it's got to be transparent, explainable, responsible, accountable. Okay, so what you may find is that before you use a tool that uses AI, that it may actually comply to these requirements, and there will be ways to validate how those tools comply to those requirements. Now, why do I talk about AI in this specific presentation? Because we're going to see in a minute that in order to help you with reducting footage, i.e. hide faces or vehicles or license plates or things of that nature, we've actually implemented a machine learning method, an AI tool that actually recognizes people's faces in video, recognizes vehicles, recognizes license plates, tracks them around your shaky video, and automatically redact them. But we're going to see how we've made it in such a way that it complies to different and several regulations that might be in policing. So there are strict regulations. This might not be internationally, But certainly all countries now have got to adhere. For example, in Europe, there's now the AI Act. And in fact, me and Michelle, we just came out of a company meeting where we've got like loads of webinars in regards to the AI Act that we're going to hopefully release further down the line this year. But there are regulations like to comply. Now, one of the main things about using AI tools, well, first of all, there are AI tools that can process images, can enhance images or clarify images. Well, they are forensically very, very dangerous to use. And the reason why is because those tools don't actually just use the original data in your images, but they actually add data that comes from other sources. And that all comes from training. Well, forensically, you can understand how that's very dangerous. But there is no doubt that for things like, for example, finding people's faces or finding license plates for the sake of redacting them from hiding them, then such a tool that has been trained to find such things can be very, very beneficial and safe as long as it's got some safeguards in place. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, so what that means basically is that AI tools will make errors. Okay, just like any sort of humans, and we cannot rely on AI tools kind of like a blind eyes, but we kind of have got to check them and make sure that they did what they were intended to do. And if they didn't, that we can correct certain things quickly and efficiently. Okay, so another thing that has been reported as being difficult with the using of AI is reporting its actual usage. Okay, so all right, so we have redacted some footage, but when did you use AI and when did you use more traditional methods? So we kind of like got to explain this and have it in a piece of paper or in the document that they can we disclose in with our evidence. Another thing that could be an issue, an impediment, is that a lot of the AI models, because they are so big in size, they are usually online. So it's not kind of like unusual that you may access, for example, a tool that can generate imagery, maybe by a text prompt. Okay, so you basically typing what you want the model to create in an image, and then that goes on the internet to look for the appropriate model in order to generate that data. Of course, that in policing can be a problem because having your forensic machine connected to the internet, it can be dangerous. So some countries, for example, the Netherlands, have got some strict guidelines. Where forensic machine cannot actually be connected to the internet. And you will see how with replay, all basically the main AI function, which is that Redux features in the video, is all offline. I.e., you install the program, and once you've installed it, everything that you need is in that offline environment. So you don't need to go onto the internet. Okay, so our solution for all this problem is called Amped Replay. So it's one of the five programs that we supply at Amped Software, and it's designed for police officers and investigators who are not necessarily experts in videos, but they need to do some annotations, some redactions, or it might just be a case where they need to view footage to find evidence of a crime. So all those issues that we talked about before, the difficulties sometimes in loading video, and then obviously the tedious work that you have to do when you have to redact or annotate, we try to simplify in this solution, Amped Replay, this product here. So what is Amped Replay? We refer to it as the forensic video player for non-technical personnel, so non-video expert. So it supports over 300 video formats using the same conversion engine as other Amped products such as Engine, DVR-Conv, and even Amped 5, which is kind of like most known Amped product. So you can easily convert and play videos. You don't have to worry about the format. You just drag and drop it. It's got a very traditional motion detection tool, which can help you find the suspect movement in long surveillance videos. So this can really help you and aid you when you got hours and hours of video and you're looking for a person crossing a road on a specific area of the video or a vehicle passing by. Then you can do some, you can apply some techniques to for the program to find that movement using traditional forensics. This doesn't use any AI. It's just basically recognizes how pixel changes from one frame to another of your video. Now, the kink about replay is it's got a simple interface. You will open it, you will immediately kind of know how to use it. It's designed to be, that you don't have to look at manuals or quick start guides. You can just open it up and use it, no problems at all. And it's great for anyone who touches video. So even like non-technical stuff, like I was saying to you before, like administration stuff that deals with data protection request or Freedom of Information Act, they need to redact video or sound, they can use Reply, and you don't need to be an expert at all. It's basically a player, but it's got also advanced annotations and reduction features, and integrates fully with Five. So for those of you who know, so AMP 5 is the program that AMP supplies for more advanced enhancement. And really, AMP 5 is more suited for video experts or people who understands problems in images, limitations, resolution, compression, distortion, kind of all the kind of issues that you get with imagery. So AMP 5 is more designed for that. But what that means effectively is that you can start a case or an investigation in AMP Replay, and then if your organization has got a more advanced unit that deals with video, then that project, that case can easily be imported into AMP 5 and continued or corrected from there. Okay, so in regards to reduction, so we're going to look now in a minute how there are several methods to track and redact in a replay. Some of them using traditional, again, pixel recognition, so non-AI based. Some of it using what is called keyframing, i.e. Registering with the position of people or vehicles moving on the screen to then generate a linear movement in between those points. That's very common with video editing still. And now we also got what we call assisted reduction. So we call it assisted reduction for a reason. Yes, it uses a machine learning model, but it's kind of like it does all the tedious work for you so that you can then review it as a human. You can review it, and then if the model has made any errors or missed anything, that you there to basically correct what the AI engine hasn't picked up on. And just this very concept, we made it such because he then complies with some of the regulations that are around in policing for the AI tools, i.e., it makes errors. So how do we reduce the risk of like a child or something that cannot be seen going out in courts, like because somebody has missed it. So we've basically made a system that implements AI to do all the tedious work for you, and then makes it easy for you to review and correct. What that means effectively is that you're still in charge, you're still responsible for the work, and that's not being funny, but that's just the way it has to be in forensics. Okay. Now it's designed to be easy to be reviewed and corrected. So a human that reviews the work that the AI model does to to find persons or vehicles or license plates, and then easy to correct. There might be just like a person has been identified by the AI model, but has been missed by a couple of frames. And then it's just a matter of extending that reduction back and forth a couple of frames. And it will take like seconds to do that. All the uses of AI are reported transparently to comply with regulations. So in new reports that we'll be able to generate when we produce our evidence, there will be clear indications of when and where the machine learning model has been employed, and it's quick and easy to use. And everything, like I said to you before, is installed offline. So you do not need the internet. As long as you got the installer and the valid license, you just install Replay and you can start. No access to the internet requires. Now, some of the benefits: it performed common tasks to analyze video evidence during initial stages of the investigation. That's really what it's designed for. It's the early stages on investigation when you are in a rush, right? You need to maybe export images from a video, but you need to make sure you're redacting third parties that are not relevant to that investigation. So that's where Replay becomes really effective. You can quickly get an image out of the media for identification or public interest, and all the issues that we see with that, i.e. how the video was acquired. So sometimes I see video screens being filmed by a mobile phone or by a body-worn camera. Okay, that's the worst way you can acquire a video. That happens because the police officer might be on the scene and might not know how to download the CCTV. Okay, so that's how it's captured, but of course that might have big repercussions. And as I said, with replay, you just drag and drop, and then that ensures that your final product is the image that you export from the video is pristine quality, as close as possible to the original. So we can redact and annotate easily, even in shaky videos, and that's where assisted reduction can be really helpful. Body-worn cameras, they are worn by by an officer, and therefore they will be very, very shaky. Okay, so trying to track a person when the video is that shaky can be quite tedious, and that's why it can be really, really helpful. And you no longer have to rely on office hours and availability of dedicated units for basic tasks. And that's also a common problem. Oh, the video unit only works Monday to Friday, office hours, but I've got this investigation on a Saturday. It's developing fast, and I need to make an appeal on a website, and that's what it can be really, really helpful. Now, some of the evidence, especially here in England, suggests that the use of replay is also beneficial for the video experts, because there's a lot of the cases that do not need the experts that can be offloaded, and then allows them to then concentrate really on the work that can only be done by the experts. So we have already got some feedback that the use of replay in force is extremely beneficial for that reason, even for the more adepts like video units. And again, through integration between replay and five, if you got a system in place where, I don't know, maybe you got police officers redacting in replay, and then you got a peer review that needs to go from the video unit. Well, the video unit can open the replay project in five, and they can make small correction and adjustment, and be the final kind of like a chain of that evidence production. Easy to correct amend reduction, previously done by frontline officers. That's what I just said. And the reassurance that videos are processed correctly and with a controlled and restricted tool set. So with tools that are designed to deal with video forensically. That's what we're here to do. That's our business. And it's powered by the engine, by the conversion engine that understands formats and can play them or convert them without losing any quality, or with losing as less as possible. Sometimes sometimes there can be a loss when you convert something, but to make it as close as possible to the original, if you like. Integrates with AMP5 for further processing. Okay, so just in a nutshell, for those of you already replay users, but I'm gonna keep very, very quickly because I want to jump on replay and show you the stuff that you can do. So we now have a new Redact sub. This is kind of newish for about a year. So before you did the reduction and annotation in one single button. So this is basically your replay interface. As you can see, you got the video in the middle. You got some buttons in here which allow you to do, well, playing, enhancing, reducting, annotating, and exporting. Just as simple as that. You can see why it's easy. And in here, you got some tools and, like drawing tools and things like that we're going to have a look in a minute. So yeah, before we used to do reduction and annotation in the same area, if you like, but now they are separated. And they are separated really because we need to ensure that we redact before we do any annotation. So that's why the redact button is before in that. We got, of course, the new assisted reduction model, which is going to talk about in a minute, uses a machine learning model. I want to emphasize on that. Okay, we're very transparent on that. There are some annotation improvements. You can now feather selection, and you can also invert selections. So you can see in this particular example, Freedom of Information Act request. I don't know if you're familiar with those. Basically, if this person here, which is a suspect, has been caught on camera doing an offense, well, that person has got the right to request all the evidence that the police has got on him or her. So if I was the bad guy here, and I can tell you I am the bad guy in this video, I have got the rights legally to request all the evidence, because maybe I want to speak to my solicitor and tell them, okay, look, you think what they got on me is enough to get me incriminated? Can I get away with it? Of course, if I'm guilty, etc., etc. So Freedom of Information Act, basically, you basically need to hide the identity of everything identifiable and of everyone identifiable apart from the subject of that Freedom of Information Act. And if you think about it, it's just the case of redacting visually everything but that subject. And that's why we got now an invert selection. And as you can see in here, everything is pixelated. redacted, so you can't identify any license plate, any faces, apart from the subject of the Freedom of Information Act request. The reports that you can generate in replay, which can be as important as the actual evidence, especially if you goes to courts, then is had a complete revamp. Okay, so it's now much more streamlined. Things are more easy to find. There are chapters, and it's much easier to read. You can do things like bookmarks customization. That's more like doing a storyboard, if you like, a chronology of events, and you illustrate the frames of a video that might be relevant to a case. Improved motion detection. So if you're looking for motion in a specific video, maybe you got some evidence that your suspect or your witness or whatever has crossed a specific area. Okay, then you can select an area of interest, and it's got some improvements in there as well. The audio reduction as well has been improved, so we can do video reduction and we can also do audio reduction, or actually do both at the same time. So with audio reduction, usually we are getting rid of like a little sections of sound that maybe reveals the address of a witness or of a victim. Of course, you cannot take that evidence in courts. You certainly don't want the personal information of a victim or a witness in the courtroom for the defendant to hear. Simple as that. You can also do things like watermarking. This can be very efficient if you want to make it clear that you use a specific tool like AMP2Replay to produce video evidence because it's got watermark. You can have it, you can have it across the whole thing, or you can have it just at the top left or whatever. You can customize it. The graphical interface is customizable in itself. You can make panel bigger or smaller. This is all kind of relatively new. And also we've improved the way we convert and export media using a format that is much more forensically robust and modern than its AVI predecessor. And also you can animate annotations and reductions and things like that. We're going to have a look at that in a minute. Okay, so I'm just gonna wrap up this section now. Just take me an half an hour, so I got a little bit of time to actually show you replay in action. So as when you open replay, when you install replay and open it, this is what you get. Nice streamlined interface. The buttons in here that you saw earlier. Now, the easiest way to load the video replay is just drag in and drop them. So all you have to do is drag and drop them. So for example, I can drag this clip in here. Into replay, open Windows Explorer or the desktop. Make sure you got both visible at the same time, so you can drag from one location to another. And by dragging, of course, I mean just clicking and holding the left mouse button, and then just putting it into replay in there. Now, as soon as you drag and drop, you see that your button that gets highlighted is this play button in here. So this is the button that allows you to do viewing and bookmarkings. Effectively, though, you can do that in everywhere you are in replay. But the play tab, for example, has got motion detection, which allows you to detect motion. Okay. And in fact, if you click between the buttons, you will see that all this part of the interface, if you like, remains the same. What most changes is these panels on the right-hand side. So what that means is you can still view the footage even if you are on, if you're doing enhancement or reductions or anything like that. Okay, at the bottom you've got the waveform. Now you see you've got what the waveform is effectively is a graphical representation of the audio gain in your timeline. So this is effectively timeline. In here you got the start of the video, and here you got the end of the video. And you can see this video's got sound. And for example, more or less in the middle of the video, there's some sound which is louder than other areas of the video. This is useful because it allows you to do audio reductions quite easily. We're going to have a look at that in a minute. Okay, so what else have we got? We got the Enhance tab in here. So if I click on that, this has got some very, very easy and safe to use enhancement tools. One of the most common things that you might want to do in a video is lighten it up or change the contrast between the foreground and the backgrounds. And for that, you can just use the light filter. And in replay, all you have to do is click on it. And then as soon as you click on it, you got a drop-down box. And you can choose most filter, whether to use an automatic modes or the manual modes. So the automatic mode is great for personnel that has got no idea what they're doing with the video. and you can just click on that and let the software automatically assess things like pixel values in luminance and change them across the whole video. Or you can choose a manual mode. If you choose a manual mode, then you got some more parameters and sliders that come up. Again, very, very easy. Contrast and brightness. You know, if you want to make your video brighter, you just drag that slider, you click on drag, and you can change the contrast. And what that does effectively is just changing the pixel values, okay? Remember, digital images and videos are basically a combination of pixels, which are small elements, also the smallest elements. And each one of these pixels have got the values of luminance and color. So if you want to make your image brighter, what you're doing is you're changing your luminance values to increase so that they're all a little bit brighter. That's effectively what brightness and contrast do. They change your pixel values. Now, why is it important to do this also? Because in a minute, we're going to be reducting this video. So what we're going to do is we're going to detect all the faces, and then we're going to blur them or we're going to pixelate them out. So what that means is that we're going to give our assistant reduction model the best opportunity to do that. So if, of course, if we're telling the assistant reduction to have a look at the video that is very, very dark, and now what I've done, I've deliberately changed the brightness to be very, very low, the assistant reduction model is going to have probably issues finding faces in this dark video. So what we're doing effectively is we're preparing the video for what comes later. So we want to make sure we got a decent brightness. We don't want to go too much because, of course, when we do this too much, then what we're doing is we are saturating. We are now making everything reach the maximum white and basically wash out all the detail that was previously before. So we want to find a comfortable compromise where we can clearly see faces, but without losing any of the facial details and anything like that. Another thing that we can do in video, okay, this video is very, very short. So the replay just gives you a snapshot of the essential information of that video. For example, how many frames there are in the video and what frame we are actually at. So you see that red line, if you like. So that's my playhead. And I can click and drag it across my timeline to quickly scrub on the video. And as I scrub it, you can see that the frame number is changing. So I'm now looking at frame 109 out of a total of 134. Of course, here at the bottom, you still got controls like play. So you can play the video at this intended frame rate. You can go analyze the video frame by frame by using the previous and next frame buttons. Of course, for any of these, there are shortcuts as well. And then you can take bookmarks. And this is, again, is useful if you're looking at a long video and finally you see your suspect. You say, oh, you know, I want to make a note of that frame because later I want to illustrate it in my reports. And then you can just click on that button. You can zoom in or out. And another thing you can do is set a portion of the video you might be interested. So say, for example, you got an hour video, and this is definitely not the case. This video is only 6 seconds long, in fact, as you can see here. And again, the next indicator here gives you the count time where you play at this and the total time of your clip. But say you had an hour video, but you were just interested in a very, very short portion of that video, you know, 10 seconds or so, then what you can do is you can top and tail it, or set a range, what we call a range. So you to do that, you will just put your playhead where you want your new video clip to start, and then click on that button here, start range, and you can see now what's highlighted is basically the portion of the video that you are working on. And then similarly, if you want to select an endpoint, you put your playhead at that point, and then you click on that button there, end range, and now you're only working. You still look at the old video, but you're only later when we will exporting, we will only export that portion of the video. If you also just want to see on the timeline that portion of the video, then you can click on this button here, which is called stretch. And now basically what you're doing is you're only viewing that portion of the video. Okay, so whatever way you want to work with. All right, let's go and redact. So let's click on this button here, redact. So this is really the topic of this webinar. Okay, so in the redaction tab, we've got a hide button, a text button, and an assisted redaction button. So you need to be in the redact in order to see these buttons in here. You also got an options in there. which I might show you a little bit later. Also, there is a section for audio reduction. So for audio reduction, I'll show you a little bit later on how easy it is to remove sound as well. But I want to focus on the video for now. So what you can do is the easiest way to redact in Replay, if you wanted to do manually, because you may not want to use AI at all, you may want to do manually. So you click on the hide tool and then you go and draw on your video. So in this instance, I've just drawn a circular mask by default. And then what you can do is here you can see the strength, which basically gives you the strength of the reduction. You want to be careful with this one because you want it to be not too aggressive, like this, for example, but at the same time, you want it to be kind of like enough not to identify that person. Now, with pixelation, you're usually safe, but say, for example, you change the reduction effect and there's a drop down in there, you can change to blur and blacken. If you select blur, for example, well, blur, it's a process that can be arithmetically reversed. Okay, so if you use something like AMP5 or even Photoshop and you know what you're doing, you can potentially deblur this face, okay, and reveal some more detail than is actually in there. So of course, you don't want that. The whole purpose of this exercise is to make sure that everything that you're reducting cannot be identified. So for that reason, you can also choose a blacken effect, and this will just basically blacken everything. There is no way you can reverse black pixels, okay? And so that's the most safest one, but it's also the less visually pleasing one, if you like. Now, of course, when you do forensics, it's not about how it looks stylistically, it's more about the safety and the security of what you're doing. So you may just safely go to blacken, and in that way, you also make it clear that you are reducting that person. Okay, so the problem though, and I'm just going to delete this one in here, is that of course there are many faces, and this is just a static video. Okay, so the camera is not even moving. So to make the process a little bit easier, we're going to use assisted reduction, which is this button over here. So go ahead and click on that one. Very, very easy to use. On the filter settings, you got what you want to identify and reduct. Now, this feature came out about 6 months ago. And of course, we will improve it and we will add new features as we go along. We update the software very regularly, 3 or 4 times a year. But at the moment, the model can identify persons, so full bodies, heads. So that means faces, back of the heads, profiles, any angles you can actually film a head. The model has been trained to recognize that kind of feature, that kind of detail. Vehicles and license plates. We're also working on adding things like tablets and smartphones and things like that. Why? Because one of the common things that happen when a police officer interviews a witness is he or she will make notes of the personal details on a smartphone or an electronic device or a tablet. And of course, you may redact the sounds, but visually that information will still be viewable. So you want to make sure we can redact that. So it's one of the things that we're adding on. So say, for example, in this instance, all we wanted to is to make sure we redact everyone, but a specific person, this lady here. She's actually the suspect in whatever this crime is, okay? So say we want to redact everyone by her. So what we will do first, we will tell the model to look for heads. So all I have to do is untick all the other options and just leave heads, okay? And then click on Run Assisted Reduction. Now, this process uses your graphic card to identify and track the persons. Okay, so of course this is dependent on the power of your graphic card. The better graphic card you got on your system, the quicker it's going to be to find that information. You don't need a graphic card necessarily. You can also just work. You can have like a standard issue or a chipset graphic cards, and then like basically you can just use your CPU, but it will take much longer. So the faster the graphic card you have, the quicker it will be. Okay, sometimes it will do this. It will actually block for a bit, and then continue. So don't panic when that happens. All the model is doing, it might do some quick assessment of the overall video first, and then it will actually start looking at the frames and identifying people or whatever it is that you're looking for. Okay, so when the process is completed, you don't actually have done any reduction yet. All you have done is identified, in this case, the heads. And the identification is in the form of what we call bounding boxes, and also got identifiers. So this will not actually be visible on the video where you export it, but helps you and the model identify people or persons or heads, whatever you're looking at, by a numerical convention. You'll see later how you can also actually rename labels, okay, suspect, victim, witness, or whatever. But by default, this is what happens. So then what you get is on the left-hand side here, you got the sort assisted video reduction panel. And what it's going to do is going to give you the thumbnail of all the features that have been located. For in this instance, we're only looking for heads, so they're all listed in here. It also tells you the label and the frames at which that feature was identified. Now, this panel, by default, gives you all of the heads detected in the video. Okay. But say, for example, you wanted to filter the results just by showing you the heads at a particular frame, then what you can do is you can click on this button here, only list reduction presence in the current frame. And then as you move your playhead, the contents of this panel will change. You will only be shown the the heads identified in this frame. Of course, in this video, they're more or less the same people in every frame of the video, but when you work on other videos where the camera moves from one area to the other, this will be very, very efficient way of finding what you are actually looking for. Now, what I want to do is, before I do anything, or before I redact to do anything, I want to tell the application that I do not want to redact a certain person, for example, this person here. Now, there's two ways of doing this. Either I click and scroll down with the arrow buttons on the list of findings. And as you can see, the one that is highlighted will be also highlighted in green on the viewer. So I can quickly scroll through them to find it. Or, of course, I know that that person the software is calling her head 244. So I can just individualize her with this convention. So what I want to do is I want to remove that person from my reduction process because that person is a suspect and I do not want to redact her. So all I have to do is tick that box and then click on the button remove. So now I can just go ahead and check. Now, also you have to take into account that sometimes, especially if the camera moves, say that the camera moved to see a completely different area of the scene. Okay, so that person is no longer in view. And then he eventually goes back to this table, okay, and that person is in view again. Well, how does the model recognizes that that's the same person? Okay, well, sometimes the model has been trained to recognize heads and vehicles and license plates so that the model understands that even if the camera moves or that person or feature goes out of view, it's still the same feature. Sometimes it doesn't. Again, and you're coming back to the fact that AI makes mistakes, okay? Maybe the lighting has changed and it does not longer recognize that person as the same person. And in that case, we have a way to actually manually merge different features together. In other words, we can manually tell the model, hey, that person is the same person, even if you identified it as two different heads, and we can merge them manually. And I'm going to show you this a little bit better in the next sample that I've got in mind for you. Okay, so in this instance, we have only removed that from the selection. So when I'm ready, I just click on that button, apply all. So what will that do effectively is we'll apply a hide filter, which I showed you earlier, to all of the bounding boxes that is found in the video. And it will, of course, attract them as the boxes are there. Okay, so notice how all the faces have been blackened. And this is because the last time I used the hide filter, I used this reduction type. Well, say I want to change that. I'm not happy with black, and it looks now okay. Maybe if it was just one person, it would be fine. But now it's just like a bunch of black balls in my video, and it kind of like looks kind of messy. So what I can do is I can click on any of this reduction. It doesn't really matter which one. For example, I'm going to click on this one here. As soon as you click, now on this panel, you've got the settings for that particular reduction. So say I want to change it now to pixelation. So I'll go into the drop-down box in there and click on pixelation. Now I can change the strength how I wanted it. Just want to make sure I find a happy medium. Again, I don't want to be able to recognize people. That's pretty good. Another thing I want to do is the shape. So with the shape, and you got to drop down for the shape as well, you've got three types. One is rectangle. So effectively your bounding box is the shape of the reduction. Or you got an ellipse inscribed. And what that does, as you can see, it puts the circle inside the bounding box. So bearing in mind this black outline is the actual bounding box that the model has used to identify the heads. If you use that, you have a slight issue that, you know, there might be facial features or vehicle features or anything identifiable that might be outside the actual shape, but inside the bounding box. So that could be a problem because what's being redacted is in the shape in here. So for that reason, we also got a circumscribed ellipse. So what that will do is we'll draw the ellipse around the corners of the bounding boxes. So it will make bigger, but it will give you more surety that there are no facial features left visible if there were any to start with. And that might be the easiest option that you might take. Okay, now you will be asking, okay, well, do I have to do that for every single reduction? You can do if you want, but of course we want to save time. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to apply this to all of them. So what we've changed for this particular reduction, we want to apply to all of them that have been found by the model. So to do that, we will just right-click and select Apply Properties to All Heights. And then what will happen is will be reducted. All of them will be reducted. Of course, if you then wanted to change one, maybe one person is closer to the camera, and then for that reason, then the strength of that reduction may not be applicable for only this particular person. Then what you can do, you can individually change the strength of only that reduction. Okay, so you have a bunch of different options in there. Right, now comes the very important part. So I've used the assisted reduction to do most of the tedious work that I would have otherwise had to do manually. Okay, but remember, we have to ensure that there's nothing that has been missed, or there are no mistakes, because you may even have a feature that is not a face that has been detected by the model. This is where the peer review comes in. This is where you, as a human, will check how the process went and will do any correction. For example, I can see that here, for example, if you look at this woman here, as I go across my clip, for some reason, there is a bunch of frames that the reductor has not detected. Okay, so he has missed a few frames and then has recognized that person again. And that can be because, I don't know, maybe the compression, maybe the resolution, the lighting condition, the detector does no longer think that that is a head and therefore is not selecting it. So what we need to do is, okay, well, that person has been successfully identified up to a point. So what I can do is I can select that reduction, and all I have to do is click on it. And you can see that when it's clicked, you also got a representation there on the timeline. And now that it's selected, I can do manual changes. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch that selection for the number of frames where that person is visible. So to do that, all I have to do is just drag that timeline or that playhead up to the point where that person is then picked up again by the reductor, okay, whatever that frame it is, and then deselect that to remove it. So now, and you can see I've missed another frame. No problems. I just go back a few frames, click that selection again, and stretch it for a little bit longer until it joins back to the other one that is automatically there. So I can do that for everything that is not being detected. Now, another thing I should tell you. You see that there are other persons in here that have not been detected. Well, chances are another reason why the detector may not have picked that person up is because the detector has also been trained to a certain extent up to what sort of quality a person is identifiable. I mean, I'm not being funny, but at that distance, that person may not be identifiable in any case because the resolution at that distance is just simply not good enough to be able to distinguish one person from another. It's just not enough data to be identifiable. But if you want, you can go ahead and redact them manually, or you can change the threshold of sensitivity of the reductor. In other words, you're relaxing a little bit the parameters up to which point the reductor thinks that that's a person or a head. So you can do that. So it's not something that can be easily done in replay for the specific reason that we don't want non-technical persons to mess up with these settings. But we have these settings available to change as well if needs be. Okay, so once you've done the review and you're happy, then you go and export in here. So you go into the export tab, and in here, and by the way, you can just export the current image. So wherever you play it is, so you may just be doing an appeal, so you are looking for this specific person. And what you can do very quickly in Reply, I'm going to show you now, is a little bit off topic, but since we're here, I'm going to show you how easy it is to do it. I can go onto the Annotate tab, and I can quickly do, you see in here, you got a bunch of different annotation types, and I can click on the Magnify, which is one of my favorite annotation tools in Replay N5, and just do like a magnification. So I just draw a magnification rectangle, and I just reposition this blue dot in here to where this bad person is. I can zoom in a little bit. I can change the interpolation method to be better quality, and I can resize this rectangle if I need to. And if I want to, I can also change the border type to shape only, or my favorite is this one here, point to zoomed area. So this one, you got magnification, and you also got a visual kind of representation of where that magnification comes from. And then you see, this is why it's essential that we now have the redaction tab before the annotate, because now there's no risk that whatever else that might be into that annotation is not redacted. So in other words, the redaction comes first and then the annotation comes later. So even if you're magnifying, there is no risk that you might reveal something that before was redacted and now is no longer redacted. And then what you can go into the export current image, or for example, you can export the video, process video as MP4. So this would be the option that you choose if you want to export your redacted video. And this is basically designed to be a format that is compatible with every off-the-shelf Windows or Mac computer. Doesn't require you to have any special player or anything like that. Will play with Windows Media Player, or will play with QuickTime if you're using a Mac. So imagine how many solicitors use Macs, okay? You don't have to worry about compatibility. So you choose this option, and it will be playable in court. It will be playable by every Windows and Mac machine off the shelf. So it's designed to be full compatibility. And then you can generate reports. Now, for the report, I'm going to do it for the next samples because it's much more appropriate. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to drop a clip in here. Just go back on the play tab. Click on this clip, just drag and drop. And basically, this is, we saw a little brief shot of this bad guy, and you may recognize these two people. Yeah, this happens quite a lot, actually. So that video is that crime has been filmed, okay? And now what we're going to do is we want to protect the identity of the victim, and there's a witness as well, a very, very brave member of the public who gives chase to this bad guy. Okay, so again, in this instance, I'm going to do it to the old video. Contrast looks pretty good already. I don't need to change and go into the enhanced light and change the lights or anything like that. Of course, I can do, but I'm pretty happy with that. Going to the Redact tab in here. Now, I want to show you something quickly. So remember earlier when I say to you that in Replay, you can also use non-AI based redaction, okay? And you can animate reductions very quickly without using the assisted reduction. But now I'm going to show you why sometimes you might use one method over the other. So for example, if I wanted to redact this guy, okay, so I don't really want to, because this is the suspect, okay, but say I was going to redact him, you know. And I was gonna choose a height, and then maybe, yeah, choose a circle, and then change the strength and going like this. So I've done this manually. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a process called tracking. Okay. So it's not using AI, it's manual. And what I will do, I will click on this button here called track. And now you can see this yellow and green outline. So I'll tell you what they are. So the green one, you are basically telling the program what area to track. So for example, you see the top of this person has got a very distinguished and distinctive pattern on the shirt. So in other words, it's very easily identifiable from a pixel point of view. And what I mean a pixel point of view, I literally mean the configuration of where those pixels are and what their luminance and colored values are. Okay. And then this yellow box is basically the anticipated direction of movement of where that subject is going. So basically, I'm going to tell the software, hey, look, don't bother looking for your shirt above or on the right, because that is going to move to the left onto the next frame. So making the process a little bit easier. So I'm just shifting this yellow rectangle towards the direction of movement or anticipated direction of movement. Now, notice how what I want to track is the head, but sorry, what I want to redact is the head, but what I'm actually tracking is the shirt. So why am I doing that? Why am I not just tracking the head? Because, of course, if I'm not using an AI methodology, if that person's face, and now look at me, actually, me speaking to you, if I turn my head like this, well, in pixels, that will look considerably different to how it would look if I'm looking ahead at the camera. Of course, using non-AI, the program is not looking for a head, it's looking for pixels. It's trying to recognize pixels. So for that reason, I opted to look for the suspect shirt, because even if I move my head, presumably my chest will be still facing the camera, and therefore that will not change so much. So now that I've done this, what I'll do, I will click on the track button again. And now what you'll see is that for every frame, that shirt is being looked for by the software. Remember, it's looking for pixels. Yes, these pixels will look slightly different, but not different enough for the program to think it's a different object. And so it will keep tracking it quite happily until it gets to a point where now it will be lost. Okay. And the reason why it'll be lost is because, of course, there was a point where the suspect changes its orientation to the camera, the shirt feature is no longer visible, and therefore the software has lost it. So that's why, in some instances, it is more effective to use AI, because AI has been trained to recognize heads even if the heads change their orientation and the angle towards the camera. But there is no reason why you can't use this if you are tracking something that is good quality enough and then is trackable, or you may even use AI for a bit and then use this for when the AI didn't work. So again, the choice is yours, and I've only shown you a different method to do corrections for the assistant reduction. Okay, let's do assisted reduction now, though, because this is really the topic of this webinar. So I'm going to delete this one. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on assisted reduction. Again, I'm looking for heads. This time, though, I'm going to also add labels. Okay, so you also have an option to add some labels, and this will just be some text around the reductions. And then click on Run Assisted Reduction. So again, this is doing most of the thinking, the AI model. And again, don't panic too much if this doesn't still look like it's not going anywhere. At some point, it will probably, hoping, it will just kick off and then and start. It may stop at some point and then resume again. And this again, it depends on your graphic cards, on your computer performance, etc., etc. Now we designed the system to be fairly quick. So it's the way he's doing it is basically he's not looking at every individual frame, but he's looking at frame ranges and see if he can detect a head moving from from that start frame to that end frame, etc., etc. Okay, so now we've got our heads detected in here. Again, going pretty well. you see there's something flashing in there. So this is what we call the false positive. So the reductor has thought, or at least in some frames, that this is a head. And of course it isn't. This is why, again, it reinforces the points that the assistant reductor is not perfect. Okay, he's got his limitation. Okay, so now what I'm going to do in here, I'm going to do some refinements. Now, remember, you got this panel in here, and you can do some preparation work in here. However, if you missed anything in here, not to worry, because after you've done reductions, you can still go and edit them on a one-to-one basis, if you like, okay? So whatever is most comfortable in your workflow. So again, what I'm going to do, and I'm looking at all the elements that have been detected in this particular video. So in this case, there are a couple of instances, or actually 2 or 3 instances, where the same person has been detected as different persons. And you can clearly see my head now is 1, 2, 3 times in here, or even 4 times. I recognize one in here. If you want to check, all you have to do is click on it, and then it will reveal to it the first frame where that head was detected. I can see that's still me, right? So now what I can do is, okay, I can identify that that's the same person. And what I can do, I can just select them just by clicking on the tick box. And then once I select them all, I just click on merge. And what we'll do is we'll basically merge all the frames in where those 3 reductions were visible into one single object. And I'm also going to do this with Michelle. Michelle here also, she's been identified by 2 different people, maybe because her hair is now, you see the hair is, the doctor has done a good job in identifying her because, with a hair like this, it might not look like a person's head, but it just thinks that is a different person to this other one here that's been detected at the beginning of the video. So I'm going to manually select them by clicking on the tick box. And there's also one of Michelle here at the end. Click on that one as well, and then click on merge. And there's my witness there as well. It's the brave member of the public who gives chase. There's, I think, another instance of him there as well. Yep. So 2 different instances, but it's actually the same person. Select them and click on merge. And then there's a couple of instances of objects that I've been, misinterpreted. So there's one frame or one little range of frame where a bag has been mistaken by a bag. Okay, by a head. No problems. Just select them and then delete. And I can, while I'm at it, instead of deleting one by one, I can select all of the objects I've been mistakenly confused for heads. Select them all. And there's another one here as well. If you don't know what it is, just click on it, and then it will reveal it to you on the viewer. So that's definitely not a head. Go and click on that one as well. This one here, what is that? That's, again, not a head. Selected. And then this one here, again, not a head. Selected, and then remove. And then we'll remove them all at once. And now I've just missed a few. No problem. So just go and select them. Remove. And there's one more instance. So when I merge myself on 3 objects, I've missed one. So actually 4 instances. Well, 3 have already been merged, and all I have to do is just merge the additional one, and then select them and click merge. And now I'm left with a very streamlined list of objects that I want to redact. Okay, so now what I can do is, well, I can change the label, for example. Well, this one is the suspect. So I'm just going to click in there on the label, the text box, and just type suspect with my keyboard. Do the same with Michelle here. She's the victim. And then do the same with our witness. Okay, great. And now I want to show you a quick trick. Okay, so a quick shortcut. Right, so I have redacted everything in here. So my witness, my victim, and also my suspect. But the suspect, I don't want to redact, okay? Because the suspect clearly is the one that we need to be visible in the video. So he's the bad guy. So we definitely want to see him in the video doing his bad things. So what I can do is, instead of using the tracker to redact, I can use the tracker to annotate. So what that means is, say, for example, I wanted to magnify this person instead of redacting, I can use the tracking data that was intended for the reduction for the annotation. So let me show it to you. First of all, I'm going to click on Apply to All, or Apply All, and that will redact everything, okay? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this object in here. So not the label. So I'm just going to lock this one because I don't want it. Because now there's two objects. Oops. Tell you what, I'll delete this one for ungroup. Here we go. Yeah, delete the text one. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click on this one here and select copy and tracking data. So what that's done, it has copied all the coordinates for all the frames where that reduction is, okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this one, okay, because I don't want the reduction. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to annotate. So click on the next tab. Then do any sort of reduction, like an arrow or a magnification. So probably going to do a magnification because I really like it and it really shows the evidence quite well. I'm going to put my dots in here just to show my suspect. And then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And I just make sure his face is visible there. And then I'm just going to type pointed zoomed area, which is just basically going to plot the magnification to where it comes from on the video. And then I'm going to right click and select paste tracking data. And now what that is done, what it's doing is using the tracking data of the assistant reductor to animate the annotation. So this is in preparation of our next feature, which will probably be the ability to track and annotate as well. So at the moment, you can officially only track and redact, but by using this shortcut, you can do, track and magnification or annotation. If you want to put an arrow, there's arrows here. There's different type of annotations that you can use, but the tracking data principle remains the same. Okay, probably what I want to do as well, I want to check, for example, here, Michelle is not being detected. But again, I probably wouldn't need to worry about it because at this point in time, Michelle is not identifiable. It's just a lady with long black hair or long brown hair, right? So I don't need to worry about it. If, however, there are any frames that I think she might be identifiable, for example, here, I'm concerned that she might be identifiable at this point. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add manually a redaction. So I'm going to click back on redact, type on hide, draw a circle, and maybe in this instance, I will use my tracking model. So I will click on track, and then I will track her head for a bit, and then she's keep like clicking in track, and now is happily tracking her manually without using assisted reduction. Here we go. So I just complemented a little bit of the assisted reduction with the manual reduction. Okay, now that I want to do this, now that I've done this, of course, I can go and export my video if I wanted to. But what I want to do is I want to show you the report, which is usually something that you may want to generate as well as your video evidence or your imagery evidence to show what you actually done on the video as well. So I'm going to click on Generate Report. And then I'm just going to save it on the desktop. And here you can see, so the reports will give you the software version and the report generation time, input file information, including hash value for integrity, resolution, codec, frame rates, all the technical information. First frame and last frames, but this can be also toggled off if you don't want them. And then in here, there's all the details of your reduction, okay? So in here, it will tell you what the reduction is, where it came from, where it's going, and in the case where it was achieved by using the AI model, it will tell you clearly that that's being used. So it's also using labels to help you identify what the reduction relates to. So in this case, the AI model was used for identifying the victim in between these frames in here. So from frame 20 to frame 292. So everything is reported there in your reports. Okay, so now we only got 5 minutes left. What I'm going to show you is last samples. The principle remains the same for license plate detection. So I'm just dragged down in here. So in here again, the tracker can identify license plate, and the tracker has been trained with any sort of nationality. So it doesn't matter if it's in the UK or in India or whatever it is, because really what it's looking is features. So a conglomerate of pixels that have got a rectangular shape of some sort and characters. So basically numbers and letters from A to Z. I don't know if the tracker has been trained with non-Western alphabets as well. Maybe the case, but that's what's been trained on. So now I want to show you another thing in here. So if I go into the redact button and go into my assisted redaction, and now in this case, I'm looking for license plates, not vehicles, just license plate, and then run assisted redaction. Now, this might be taking a little bit of long time, or A, because there's many vehicles, so many license plates to detect, but also another reason is because the video is quite high definition. Okay, 1920 1080. Actually, by all means, today that's not a massive resolution. Okay, but say you had a 4K video, so that will take longer because the video is of high resolution. But what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to, you see, it's doing it quite happily. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to cancel it, okay, for a specific reason because it's taking too long and it's kind of like frustrating me. So what I can do, again, I can use a cheat, okay, a shortcut. So what I can do, I can go onto the Enhance tab and purposefully make my video smaller, only temporarily. So I'm going to click on the resize filter and make my video half the size of what it is in the original. Okay, so 960, 540. Now, all I have to ensure is that I don't reduce the quality too much for the tracker not to identify these license plates. Okay, it might be the case, but just have to be careful with that. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the redact button and then do the reduction on the video that is half of the size of the original. Okay. So again, click on run assisted reduction and you see that's going much quicker. And it's going quicker because of course the video is now half of the size and therefore there's less pixels to detect and to interpret. Okay, let's give this a chance to go. Hopefully it won't take too long. And again, it might speed up at the end. So um, yeah, don't get too frustrated if it's slow at the beginning and then it takes, because it might kick off later. So again, same principle, but now we only looked at license plate. They're only listed in here and I can have a look at them. I can scroll through the video to see how that process goes. There might be frames where license plate is not detected because the tracker kind of knows that you can't identify a license plate just by 3 characters. However, if you want to do that, you can do that just by doing what I showed you earlier. Okay, but now what I've done is, okay, well, I don't want to do this on a video that is half the size, okay, because that's less quality. So what I can do is I can go back to the Announce tab. Oh, actually, no, sorry. Discard any unapply the system reduction. No, I don't want to discard it. I want to apply the reduction. So apply to all, and then this will now be pixelated. Okay, now it's done it. And remember, I can change the size, for example, for license plate, it may be more efficient to use a rectangle shape instead of circles. So I'm going to change the shape to rectangle. Also, I'm going to reduce the strength, not too much because I don't want any license plates to be identified. And then right click and select apply properties to all heights. And now they're all rectangles. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the Enhance tab and make my video 100% again. So remove the resize filter and my video goes back to full size. And now if I click back on the redact button, it comes up with this message in here. It say to me, should the form, size, and position of existing video reduction in the redact tab be adjusted to compensate for geometrical transformation applied in the enhanced tab? Yes, I want to do that because now that the tracker knows where the license plates are, it can automatically double their size and change the coordinates that they then fit into the video when it's been doubled up inside. Okay, so I'm gonna click on yes, and now the reductions have been doubled inside. So basically, what I've done, I've reduced the size of the video temporarily just to make the tracking much quicker. And then once I've done that, reestablish the real size of my video, because at that point the assisted reduction already been done on the video and then automatically being resized. So it makes the process a little bit quicker. So that one might be convenient if you're working on 4K videos or 8K videos. This little trick might help you a little bit. Okay, so now we have come to the end of the webinar, really. I'll just run you through some of the things that you can do from here on. So if you want to find out more about assisted reduction, we've got dedicated blog articles. So if you go to the AMP software website and you go to the blog link, there's a bunch of things that you can click on, but the easiest way to look for things is just to type it really in a search box, like you would expect to do with most things this day. You just go ahead and type assisted reduction in the search box, and it will come up with a lot of different articles. Some of them are product specific. For example, this one here that come up after the search as the first one, it's a specific article on how to use assisted reduction in replay, which is kind of what we covered in this webinar. But it's also got video tutorials and other things that you can have a look at. Some of them are mainly, some of the information we release in our blogs are not necessarily product related. There's also some education to get from, some literacy in video forensics that you can gain from it. Okay, so we also got a YouTube channel, which again is full of video tutorials for our products, webinars like this one, for example. I believe this one is being recorded, so it might be available on the YouTube channel fairly soon. Also, we have a series of very interesting podcasts coming up soon, discussions that we are amped to make with elite guests from the law enforcement community all over the world, in the UK, in the US, in Germany, in other countries. And we just have casual chats about video forensics in their organizations, and they are very educational, very interesting. You can listen to in your car, or when you got to spare half an hour or something like that. We already got one out, but there are more coming up. But if you are looking for, again, specific information about assisted reduction, you recognize this good-looking fella who talks about assisted reduction on a video there. And again, principles is the same. You just click on the YouTube channel link on the website and you just search for assisted reduction. All right, there's all our contacts in there. I'll just leave them up if you want to get in touch. And yeah, if there are no more questions, I thank you very much for your participation, for your attention. And I will hopefully see you or speak to you some point in the future.